Welcome to Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. Innovative Strategy is a show designed to help people with their business and personal financial literacy, but not in the way that you have known. This is not your grandpa's financial literacy, as Bill uses his 30-plus years in the financial industry to stretch your financial box from, let's say about a 30,000-foot view of things. Bill and his guests have helped hundreds of clients achieve and surpass their financial goals. If you have any questions, please email Bill at bill@billhasse, that's bill@billhasse.com, or reach out to him right here at 216thenet@gmail.com. Yes. Welcome in, Bill. How are you?
Kent.
New studio.
Kent. We're not in Kansas anymore.
No. This is, you are sitting, at the back of it. Maybe I can pan out and people can see a little bit.
Baby grand piano here.
Grand piano. Let's see what we got.
I don't know.
You're
right.
I don't know what's going on. I tried.
Well, new studio, technical. Got to work it all out.
Second studio for 216 Creator Studios.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. So we're glad to be here. And,
growing.
Glad to have you. Yeah, growing's good in business.
And growing is a good thing. It's absolutely a good thing. I love it. It's gorgeous, and I'm looking forward to seeing you fulfill those dreams.
Yeah, and of course, for those listening and watching all around the world, we're in Northern Illinois. We're today on the 23rd of February. It almost feels like winter.
Well, I was telling you, I feel more like, the role of Keith Richards, because I've been redoing the laundry room and tiling and painting and everything. Yeah. And I didn't realize that I've gotten a lot older since the last time I did that work.
The floor is farther down.
It's a little more challenging than I remember it to be.
Yeah.
But managed to get my body in, and we have a great guest today.
Yes.
And Lisa Kips-Brown that we'd like to bring on in. Lisa, join us. How you doing?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great, and I love your studio. It looks awesome.
Well, that's all to Kent. I can't take any credit.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's the team here at 216 Creator Studios. Drew, Mike, myself, we've been hard at work.
Yeah, obviously you've been hard at work.
It is in, I got to do this right. This is the Streets, powered by Piano Trends. So if you are looking for musical instruments or anything like that, check out pianotrends.com.
That's the place. That's the shop. That's awesome. Outstanding. So Lisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, I am a strategic disruptor. I love to help people figure out how to look at things differently instead of just following everybody else. And I say I'm an opportunity miner because I find opportunity in places that you would never expect. I love strategic collaborations where people can work together and everybody ends up better off, and they're actually saving money and making more money at the same time. And I love to throw on top of it, I always try to build in a higher purpose because it just makes life more fulfilling.
That's awesome. I was just having a conversation with a friend yesterday, and he brought to my attention that he told me, he gave me a wonderful compliment. He goes, I love how you live your life with intent. Mm-hmm. I'm old and I'm not looking to retire. I'm actually building new businesses. And he said, but you can live your life through default or with intent.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, default is not even an option for me.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people do live that way.
Right. That's why I wrote my last book, Disrupt Your Now, because I'm like, there's so many people, like you said, they live their life by default. For decades, they just go, and they think one day and someday, and they have these dreams. Even if they're a business owner, they're just plodding through, and then one day I'll sell my business, so one day I'll retire and I'll lay on the beach. And everybody, one day never comes, someday never comes, tomorrow never comes. And so my whole thing is start doing something now to get you closer to your dreams. And I don't mean like be irresponsible and drop everything, but stop just dreaming and start acting.
Yeah, stop being the hamster in the pinwheel,
Yeah.
and getting anywhere. And sometimes it's valuable to take a step back and,
Yeah.
and take a moment, and take a breath, think about, all right, what's going on? Why am I frustrated? Why do I feel I'm not moving forward?
Mhm.
What can I do? What can I change? You need to do, like the show says at the beginning here, we look at things from a 30,000 foot level, and try and get the grand picture. And then you bore down and work your way through the challenging times, the frustrating times. But and you're the second disruptor we've had. I think I introduced you to Jan Barlow, who's also
Yes.
known as a disruptor. So I kind of like that, right?
Yeah. Jan's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. But so specifically, who are the people that you work with?
Well, my clients range from like 20 years old to 80, but my favorite clients to work with are 50 and older, people who are either already entrepreneurs or they want to start a business and they want to do it in a way that helps them live their life the most fulfilling way, lets them live their daily life as they want to and reaching the goals that are important to them. And decades ago, I was a CPA, and then I ditched my license when I started doing web design in 95. So since 96, I've owned a web development and business strategy company. We also do branding and stuff. And so I can work with people at, like you said, 30,000 foot level and help them understand how everything fits together and look at the big picture. It's like the magic eye books. If people remember from the 90s, where if you stare long enough, you can see the image that comes out of all the dots. It's like that when you're too caught up in the day to day, you can't see the big picture. Or you can't see what's going on around you.
It's hard to those blinders come on, and it's hard to get away from that. I mean, when you go back to old books like that, I always look at Who Moved My Cheese.
Yes.
From those days, but and that's certainly happened. But I love the age bracket, and primarily the 50 and up, because we know that that's a target market for corporations to get rid of people once they're getting into their 50s and late, even late 50s, early 60s, and these folks, they have two choices: live by default or live with intent, right? And move forward, start a business. Look, and over the last 3 years, we had over 15 million new businesses registered, and we know that's a lot of people who have they come up with this great concept, but it's challenging. They don't realize how difficult it is to go from concept to success.
Yeah, it's easy to choose something that you love or something that you're good at, but the day to day of running a business can just be totally overwhelming. And I cannot imagine being laid off at my age or even younger. I'm 62. I can't imagine what people feel like, but it's hard anyway, because I've worked for myself since 1990, but it's got to be terrifying. And so the people that I work with who are going through that, I'm like, pause, stop just a second, take a step back, think of all the things that you've done your whole life. You have so much value to bring to people, not just in your work experience, but your entire life. And everybody, every one of us, because of our unique experiences, every one of us are the only one who can do whatever it is we do in the entire world. Other people can do part of it, but nobody can do exactly what you do, how you do it. So that's what I work with, whether they're trying to find another job or usually it's starting a business. But I have one client that lost a job and she was working in government and she was obsessed with getting back into government. I'm like, why? I get the stability. And I said, but you could be working in the private sector and making multiples of that and put more in your 401k. Anyway, she ended up making the job she got. I helped her think about what she could do outside of what she was doing. I think she ended up making 165% of what her last job was. And now she started in another one and is making way more than that. So
it's the challenge is, how do you go from that
Yeah.
corporate lifestyle where you're pretty much you're told what to do.
Yeah.
You know what you have to do, to that workplace where nobody's telling you what needs to be done next. You probably may not even know all
Yeah.
the things that need to be done, and everybody tries to do it themselves.
Yes.
And you can't.
Mhm.
It's impossible to build a
Yeah.
business by yourself. It
That's
really is.
right. Even if you don't have employees, you have to surround yourself with other people who know more than you, have done it longer, who have different types of experience. But then you also need people who can do the busy work for you, unless it's something that you just love doing. Like me, I love mowing the grass. So I will not let my husband hire somebody to mow the grass because that's where I love the exercise and I get my zen because I push mow. But, you know, those little things that people hate and that they're not good at anyway, they're so much better off spending their time doing what they're good at and what they
Yeah.
enjoy doing. But
Yeah. Key, enjoy. So you enjoy what you're doing. But even when you enjoy what you're doing and you're loving this and stuff, you're still going to have times where it's not fun.
yeah,
You're not enjoying it anymore. Well, okay, then you're getting into the things that you're either not good at,
mhm.
you don't want to do. You know, I mean, what person goes into business and then says, "Oh, I got to do the books. I got to watch the finances. I need my sheets. I need to, you know, what's going on."
Mhm.
And a lot of folks, most folks, don't want to have anything to do with that because, as you know, I teach financial literacy, and it's the one thing I know almost nobody knows anything about.
Yes.
So they don't want to do those things. I mean, if you don't want to do it at home for your own personal life,
Mhm.
you want to let money control you, that's your choice. But it's if you don't think about it, you don't like talk about it, you don't know about it, you're not going to do it, or you're not going to do it well.
Yeah. People, it's human nature when it's anything that's big or scary, we just want to stick our head in the sand and ignore it.
Yeah.
If I don't look at it, it'll go away. And, you know, a lot of people do that in their personal life anyway. They're way in debt and I'm not going to even think about it because it's too stressful to think about it. Okay, I
Right.
understand that. But business, you have to know, you know, where you're at. And and if you work with the right person, somebody like you who can put it in layman's terms and help people understand it through analogies and things that make sense to them, it can
Yeah.
actually be kind of fun. You could actually wake up and be like, ooh, I can't wait to see what my balance sheet says.
Well, wouldn't it be nice to get a good night's sleep and be able to wake up didn't feel that way as opposed
Yes.
to going to sleep and not sleeping because you're worried about where's the money? Am I going to make payroll?
Yeah.
I need to make these payments to vendors or whatnot. But you know, it's also challenging too because a lot of people do startups on little to no money, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not impossible. It's harder.
Hmm.
It's going to be a greater challenge because you know, and you can lean on people and friends that you know to help out and get some information. But be careful. I've had many people come to me seeking advice, and what it turned out to be really was, can you just send me a bunch of referrals?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, no, now you're asking me to sell for you,
Exactly.
and that's not what I do.
Hmm.
I used to say yes to everything and everybody, and I've learned I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
And they need to learn to do it for themselves too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
people are so terrified of networking because I think we think about like the Chamber of Commerce and whatever, not to diss them, but you know, where everybody's there handing out business cards or like BNI or something, you know, and everybody, all they care about is how many business cards can I get and how many people can I call and hound
Yeah.
to death. But real networking isn't like that. Real networking is developing relationships with people that you like and that you have something in common with, and then the business just flows from that naturally. Because people work with people they like. Very few businesses, unless it's huge corporations or the government, very few make their buying decisions on, okay, who is the cheapest and the best and the whatever. The bottom line, if you can do what you do and you're reasonably priced, you fit in their budget or whatever, they are going to pick the person that they like the most, that they have the most
Right.
rapport with.
Well, I'm so glad you brought this subject up because it is a pet peeve of mine that I do belong to a few networking groups. They're shrinking as my time shrinks, but so many people are pushing a sale.
Yes.
You know, whether it's in the chat box, this is who I am, this is what I do, you need to talk to me. You know, and that's just not the proper way. And even when it's your turn, your opportunity to speak about who you are and what you do, as we all do, you know, you got to make sure you're just kind of expressing what your business is, but you can't be selling, you know, and don't take business cards and put everybody into a mass email that comes out every week, you know, without
I can't
asking
stand that.
permission.
Or if you're on LinkedIn, when you ask somebody to connect and they accept, don't immediately pitch them. I'm like, and you know, I'm just like, go away. That is not why I'm on here. I don't want to be pitched through DMs by somebody that I don't know. So y'all, if you're doing that, stop it.
Well, you know, I've had this conversation many times, and it doesn't seem to do any good having the conversation. But the people don't realize the damage it does.
Yes.
It's not that you don't make a sale. Now you've got somebody who not only doesn't want to talk to you anymore, but isn't going to give you any referrals, isn't going to provide you with any help of any kind.
Yeah.
You're doing more harm than good. And people just don't seem to realize that.
I got a DM.
You know what's funny? It's like the signature in your email. Nobody ever reads the signature.
Yeah.
You know, it's so I've learned this. It's hilarious because I can't tell you how many times people come to me and say, "Oh, what time is your show on? And where can I watch
You're
it?"
like, it's in
my it's in my signature. The links are there. The time is there. It's there for you. And you've had 100 of my emails. So,
and the only reason I know that is because I was going to be on the show, and I'm always so paranoid, especially with time zone differences, that I'm going to get mixed up. So I kept going back to your email and, you know, verifying, but otherwise I would have never read it. I was going to tell you a couple weeks ago, I got a DM from somebody who connected with me on LinkedIn and said, "Congratulations on the new job, blah, 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 blah." And I wrote them, I'm like, "Did you even look at my profile?" I guarantee you it was one of those automated things. But I posted that, I shared it, and I blurred out the person's name because I don't want to be mean, but shared it as a lesson. And a guy that I've known for like 15 years messaged me because he knows I've worked for myself for 34 years. He's like, "Oh, I hope you're settling in now." I'm like, "Yeah, I finally am kind of settled in."
That's funny because it's so true. And that's LinkedIn. I changed my profile because there was one business I was going under that I was working to start, right? Told you a little bit in the green room here, but and decided I have to pivot and make a change. And so all I did was take that part out. And of course it goes out to everybody and they're all, "Congratulations on the new job." I'm like, no, that's not a new job.
I have that disabled on mine.
I didn't have a job.
When I've even had somebody send me a message that had somebody else's name in it, I'm like, okay, you can't be any more obvious that you're either copying and pasting or you're automating it and the thing is screwed up, you know, one way or the other. This is not you. But going back to what you said about, you know, asking other people for referrals and all that, the thing is when you build your business through relationships, you're building something that's on a true foundation. It's like that song from when we were kids about building a house in sand and blah, blah, blah. I don't remember the lyrics, but you're building a true foundation. And not only might that person one day be a client of you or customer of yours, but but they don't have to be. You never know who they might know. I mean, I know people that know me would never dream that I know of. And I don't go around telling people, but I'm like, if I met you and I saw that there was a good match, I would just introduce you anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when you're trying to force it down people's throats, but the other lesson is instead of trying to ram those sales through, if you think about it as a relationship, you can end up with a client who literally is with you for decades. I have some clients who've been with me since the 90s.
That's
So
outstanding.
even if somebody like that is not spending a lot of money at one time, you think about it. They're like 20, 25-ish years probably, because
Yeah.
late 90s. You think about that. 25 years times whatever, even if it's only $1,000 a year, that's $25,000.
Right.
Um, and those people know you and trust you. And so if they go tell somebody about you, people will believe it, because it's
Yeah.
not going to be, oh yeah, I heard about this person that so and so said is their brother's uncle's niece, or whatever. Brother's
Well,
uncle. I don't know. I
yeah,
think
and
I'll do
that's
my uncle too.
good point. Good point. Because it's not like, oh, you need this. All right, go talk to that person.
Yeah.
It's a much more warm introduction, and those are the best by far.
Yeah.
Those are, I actually just got introduced to a broker, and I've been working with him on some insurance and stuff, and all this. He did a great job, and I have this person I met with a couple days ago who said, "Oh, I need to do homeowners and car insurance and whatnot."
Mhm.
And I said, "Well, gee, I just happen to have a guy, and I just did him. I just worked with him myself. He did a great job. Let me introduce you to him."
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it works.
That's what people want. And you saved that person so much time.
Yep.
Now they don't have to go looking for somebody that they hope they can trust. They're like, oh, Bill already works with this person, so I know they can trust him. I'll give you an example about building relationships also, and investing in people and learning about them. So this was 2017, after I wrote my 2 books ago, 3 books ago, whatever.
I want to bring that up. I'm
Yeah,
going to bring that up
Boomer
shortly.
Cash Out.
Yeah.
So this young woman came by my office. She worked for a local financial planner, but she came by the office on behalf of Chamber to pick up something because we were sponsors of a festival. And she saw my book. She's like, oh, I didn't know you do stuff like that, because a lot of people around here don't really know what I do. I live in a small town, rural area, and most of my clients are national or global. I don't mean huge things. They're mostly just entrepreneurs. But so a lot of people around here are not really familiar with big picture of what I do. And she goes, oh my God, I need to tell Ryan about you, because he works with people like this, because that book is about helping people position their business to sell someday, but make it easier to run while you own it. And so I was like, here, take him a book, give it to him. So a couple of months later, he called and he's like, hey, let me come over and let's talk. Just get acquainted. And we had met at social events and chatted a little, but all I knew was that he was a partner in a big financial services company, and all he knew, he thought I was a web designer. And anyway, he comes over, we chatted for about an hour, learned all about each other's backgrounds, their families and all that. And it was a little over a year later, he called and said, I think we need your help. It was for his son's racing team. That was the end of 2018, and we are still working together. And I helped them start a new business, not the racing business, but something that builds on that. And we've developed things that they didn't even know they wanted to do, and I didn't know I wanted to do.
That's wild.
You're sowing seeds. You're sowing seeds to not only grow the things that you know you want to grow, but sometimes you get hybrids in there that you didn't realize are in there, and you get an unexpected plant. So look at it like that.
You don't always know that, you should have a plan. I always talk about having how important and value it is to have a plan, but it needs to be fluid, because you never know how it can shift.
That's right.
It's we go through this. I know Kent's been through this.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Is that humming?
I can hear you.
There we go. So I'm working out technical stuff in the new studio, but I did hear that buzz.
I couldn't even hear it. So,
but I love that. And I know you and I have had a conversation. Look, every guest on this show is somebody who's been referred to me.
Yeah.
Or I've been referred to them, one way or the other, and we're blessed to have so many amazing people like yourself on the show. I want you to tell us about your books.
Well, first, back in the 90s, I wrote a technical book or co-wrote a technical book for the marine industry. I was working with a client who was going bankrupt because she couldn't afford to take it back to print. Long story short, I took her printed product and turned it into an online subscription-based business in 1997 when nobody was doing that. I was like, why are you printing a book? She goes, because, hey, you're going to not print a book. Yep. Nobody was using PDFs or anything. So anyway, with that, she was going to go bankrupt because she couldn't go back to print. Instead, she ended up selling for 20 times investment when she wasn't even trying to sell. Somebody saw it and came and asked to buy it. And not long after that, the dot-com bubble burst. And so she ended up with the business back. So anyway, I love things like that, but not. So fast forward, the books, Boomer Cash Out. The reason I wrote that is I was so tired of older people, especially going, oh, I don't need a website because blah, 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 my business is doing fine. Or I use Facebook or whatever. Or they have a web page, one page up that never, ever changes.
A landing page.
Yeah. Yep. So I was like, I'm so tired of trying to explain to people why this is so important. So I wrote Boomer Cash Out in layman's terms. It's not how to do stuff. It's this is why you need to do this. This is why you need to invest in web technology, because it will not only make your business more valuable and more marketable, it will also make it so much easier to run while you own it, and you can develop new revenue streams like that book thing that I told you about. Right. So basically my attitude, I didn't write it like, oh, I want to go become a bestseller. I wrote it so that I could, because a lot of times people will pay more attention if something is in a book. For whatever reason, they're like, ooh, this must be important because it's in a book, and it's the same thing I've been saying forever and ever. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a new edition though, because, 2017 technology, the web changes every single day. So I'm writing a new edition. And even though everything in there isn't technical, some of the examples I give, I can now update with even better examples and stories of what people have done. So that's Boomer Cash Out. And then Disrupt My Now is the book I mentioned earlier. And that, again, I wrote it because I was so tired of people going, one day I'm going to do this, someday I'm going to do that. And, I'm just like, you only get one life. Do something now. But most people don't even know what they want out of life, Bill. Literally, most people don't. And so that's where the book starts. It's not a mushy gushy book. It's 50 different entrepreneurs from all over the world that I interviewed, and I pull out little stories from each one, and I have it broken down that it starts with you and what you want out of life. And then at the very end, the book ends with having a higher purpose. But the people range from a man whose clients were, God, I can't even think now, Ralph Lauren and Victoria's Secret. He's the one that was behind all the marketing and stuff for Victoria's Secret when they just exploded, back in the 80s or whatever. And Ralph Lauren's a client for 35 years. So they range from people like him to a guy that I met here locally who was in prison for 15 years for armed robbery, and he's now an entrepreneur. So it's people of all stripes, all ages, and stories of what they've overcome, challenges they've overcome, what they learned from it, and then ends with like a lesson, so it's basically to help people get to know themselves. And then I have a workbook that goes with it, because there are a lot of people that like it, but they either can't afford to work with me or they don't need to. Like I even have people like teachers that buy it. They're feeling like I got to make a change. I don't know what. So I wrote the workbook that helps people work through it, just in case, you don't need the workbook, but I wrote it for some people like structure. I don't, but
people like to learn differently.
Yes.
People do like to learn differently, and you do need to account for all of that if you're going to be out there teaching. What I like most about what you're doing is it's not how-to books.
Right. Yeah.
We can Google that. It's more like, why you should be
Right.
doing this. I love that. I love that. I have not heard that before.
Yeah, and that going back to how we started, looking at the big picture, look at whatever this topic is within the context of the big picture. And like in Disruptor, in Boomer Cash Out, I talk about a lot of people, older people, are embarrassed because they don't know much about the web. So they're either embarrassed to ask or they're afraid that they're going to get ripped off or whatever. And that's totally understandable. But I have content in there to help them feel better about themselves. I'm like, you're a digital immigrant and younger people are digital natives. They grew up on the web. This is part of their DNA. Yes. You've had to learn this new language. And I said, think about somebody who immigrates from another country. A lot of times the initial immigrant never learns the language and stays kind of sequestered in their community within whatever city they end up in, Chinatown, whatever. But then the younger ones blend into America better. I'm like, it's the same thing. You can learn it, but you have to immerse yourself in it. But you don't have to learn how to do it. You know, you just.
Yeah, well, you know, that's interesting you pointed out because I've often bragged that I'm IT illiterate. And I you know, but actually, if something breaks down on my computer or something goes wrong, I figure it out.
Yeah.
Typically, but I still like to say I'm IT illiterate, and it just saves me in other ways.
That way people don't expect you to be a technology expert who's going to help them figure out what's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I have enough things to think about and worry about and talk about. I don't need that.
Right. But my sister is a Spanish teacher. She teaches middle schoolers Spanish. And what she focuses on is conversational. She's like, I don't really even care about the various tenses. You can tell I haven't taken a language course in years. What are the various tenses and all that? Yes, you should learn them because you kind of have to learn them for tests, but learn how to speak with people just to get what you want. And so she only speaks Spanish in the classroom, and she uses hand motions a lot to help people get the feeling behind it, or the meaning behind it. And her kids, it makes me really happy because they learn so much more than we did, where we would just having to memorize. I can still remember from Spanish 1. Ay, caramba, ¿dónde están mis cosas? Están en sus luegos. Because I had to remember it from the book. Look, I'm crazy. My ADD is taking over, but I can still remember that. And I know what it means because I became fluent in Spanish because my sister, we lived together in college and we spoke it to help her. But what good is that going to do? You know,
I took German in high school and I remember a bunch of it still, not a lot. I remember how to say I speak a little and I understand a little, and then that's about as far as I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the beer? You probably know how to say beer.
What's that?
I said, you probably know how to say, where's the beer? What's the best beer? Where's the bathroom?
Well, exactly. Right. Exactly. I mean, so during COVID, one of the things I said I wanted to do, I didn't do it, was I said, take the time to learn another language.
Yeah.
And I didn't, because part of it was I did the research and it's like, okay, which one of these programs, works and doesn't work, because I remember my uncle, who was a colonel in the Marines, he was going over to The Hague to be an attaché to the U.S. Embassy there, and he had to learn a language. Mm-hmm. And so the military's idea of teaching languages is they put you in a place and you don't eat, sleep, do anything until you learn how to ask for it.
Right. My husband lived in Japan. So yeah.
Yeah, my uncle was at Okinawa for, I think he ran Okinawa for a year, but same thing, and boy, that's got to just be a tough way to learn. I guess apparently it worked.
Well, the funny thing, you said you didn't know which one of those programs worked. It's like a diet. every diet works if you do what it says you're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was my
everybody's
excuse
different.
for not actually doing it.
Yeah, no, I know that's your excuse, but I'm gonna tell you a funny story that's an example of why, an example of that every program will work if you really, really, really want to learn. So our daughter grew up obsessed with Japan, I think because my husband lived there, and also she got really into anime and all that, and she's an artist. So when she was growing up, she's like, after I get out of college, I want to go to Japan. And then it became, no, I want to be like an exchange student in college. Then it became, she was in high school, I want to go to Japan next year and go to high school. And I'm like, what? So anyway, I had bought her a year before. I spent $40 on this whatever Japanese language thing from Sam's Club. I couldn't afford or didn't want to afford or whatever the big name, you know, that I don't know how much it was then, hundreds of dollars. I figured she ain't gonna ever do it. So I bought her that. I had no clue whether she really used it. So fast forward, she set up everything for who she would go to Japan through. So she had to be interviewed. We had a conference call. It was me on one phone, her in her bedroom, and then the woman in Seattle. And we're talking about what's involved. And then the lady's like, well, you've got to write a letter to the potential host families and tell them all about you so they can pick, the right family can pick you. And I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. And then she goes, but you have to write it in Japanese. And I said, here, I'm like, how's she going to do that? That's why we're sending her to Japan. And Erin's in her room. She goes, Mom, I know how to read and write Japanese. And I'm like, you do? So I was like, I'm not getting Mother of the Year. But she did. She had taught herself to read and write. And she could speak a little, but she couldn't speak that well because she didn't have someone to speak with. So that summer, one of her friends who had done it when he came home from college, they would get together every Saturday and speak Japanese a little. And then she went, lived with 3 generations of the family, came home and sounded like a native. If I couldn't see her, I would have never known it was my daughter. And that, I'm really off track with that, but I'm also not, because business and web technology and everything else is like that. If you want to do something, you can figure it out. You just have to get hooked up with the right resources.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I actually, when I was in the trading pits here in Chicago, I was manager of a Japanese brokerage group in the pit we were in. And I had clientele from Japan and all over the Far East, but and they would try and teach me, Japanese. And they said, I only need to learn one thing. It's how to say nothing done, because you keep calling me up and I have your order's not done, nothing done.
Oh, that's funny.
The only thing I remember is Moradisu Dikabashara. Means nothing done, but I remember that to this day.
That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah,
that's
see,
30 years ago.
That's what you needed to know, or that's what they needed you to know.
Yes.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but funny you bring it up. It is true in business. You're right. You can figure it out. I mean, look, we have the internet. We have Google. We have YouTube. We've got all kinds of resources available to us. Yet I just shake my head when people ask me, how do I fix this or how do I do this? Like, you do a quick search on Google. There's this really cool tool.
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
But I do like that. I'm torn because I love the fact that people, respect me to come to me and ask me for help. But at times it's like, okay.
I know. This is what I'll do. I will be like, let me Google that. And I'll tell them, this is what I'm searching for. And I'll, especially my husband, because I'm like, I know you know how to use Google. But anyway, it's like, come on, y'all. Google's been around since the 90s now. It's not Alta Vista anymore. Right. It's not directories like Yahoo. But I think people are just afraid to, this is going to sound mean, but they're afraid to think on their own, and they're afraid that they're going to make a mistake.
Many people are.
Yeah. And they're overwhelmed. If they Google it, they don't know how to filter through what's a bunch of bull and what's real advice. But, this is off track again because I have ADD. So my dad was blind, but him being blind has nothing to do with the story. I don't even know why I said that. But he loved to learn. So, we grew up with the World Book encyclopedias, and whenever there was any kind of debate about anything, Daddy would be like, get the dictionary or get the encyclopedia. And we hated it. My two sisters and I were just like, oh, we would just try to avoid any kind of conversation that would make us have to get the dictionary or the encyclopedia. And now everything that I have a conversation about, I'm either on Google or DuckDuckGo or something. And I'm like, even if I think I already know, I'll be like, I wonder if that's really whatever. And then I go, oh my God, Daddy would be in hog heaven. If he were alive now, he would just be so happy because he would be able to Google everything and correct us on everything. And,
That's too funny. We used to sit around the dining room table. I don't know if it was the TV Guide or the magazine you got back in the 70s.
Yeah, we did get the TV Guide.
And they would have there would be a section where it was all the words with the meanings and stuff. And my mom would every week we'd get that magazine and we'd sit at the dinner table and go through all of them.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even remember that was in there. So I didn't pay attention.
Well, it could have been another magazine that, that's a long time ago. And like you, and I'm 62 and memories of the 70s were blurry at best.
Yeah, really. Well, us both being 62, I want to use us as an example for the audience, not because we're wonderful and perfect, even though we are, but the reason I want to use us as an example is because we're still having fun. We have our own business that evolves all the time according to how we want our life to be at that moment in time. Like right now, my husband has early dementia and I'm shifting around some of the things that I'm doing and how I'm working because planning ahead, because I've already spent 13 years caring for family members, even though his may not never get like that. But I'm just saying, so that was a negative thing thrown in. Forget about that. But we're still having fun. We're not going, oh my God, I'm 62. How many more years do I have to work till I can get Social Security? I'm like, I don't care about that.
Yeah, I actually have a starvation for learning more now than I did when I was younger. I was a terrible student.
I was too.
I was on the lower tier, at whatever school I was at. I was an athlete, so I cared about that, but I didn't care about school at all. It was boring to me. And even in college, I spent a year and a half and I said, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You either live by default or live with intent.
Mm-hmm. I was bored stiff in school. I learned very, very easily, and of course, nobody knew about ADD then. Now I know that I have it, but I was just so bored. But as long as I got B's, I didn't care. If I got B's, then Daddy wouldn't fuss at me, even though he would tell me if I studied half as much as my older sister, I would do better. But even in college, I was just like, I just can't stand this. I'm so bored. I didn't even study for the CPA exam, but I passed it the first time because I didn't really care if I did pass it or not, and I had friends that had taken the review courses and they were like, oh my God, I got to pass this. That's number one. I wasn't all nervous about it. But number two, I was focused on not memorizing stuff, but I was focused on the big picture of what these things meant. So in the cost accounting test, there, usually it's Acme is doing these number of widgets and blah, blah, blah. So on the cost accounting part, it was like this hospital has this many beds and it costs them this much and blah, 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 blah. How many patients do they have to have in the hospital overnight in order to break even? And I'm like, well, this is easy. And I just do it. Then we go out on break and everybody was freaking out. They're like, oh my God, how did you do that? Did you figure that out? And I was like, oh my God. And I was, believe it or not, I didn't talk much back then. I was sitting there by myself and I was like, wow, I must be really dumb because I thought it was easy. And I obviously didn't understand the question. It turned out I was right. But widgets and hospital beds, no difference. It's just a different word. And
Yes.
I'm sure they were brilliant. And I'm sure most of them went on to become very successful CPAs, but they were memorizing and they weren't understanding.
And
what they
that's a
did.
method that we're taught, though. I can tell you, I remember when I was coming up to be a financial advisor, and I had to take all those tests in the Series 7, and I'm like, I failed the first time by 2 points, missed it by 2 points, and then I went back to the woman who was in charge of all the new advisors training and all that,
Mhm.
and of course she wasn't happy, and I said, okay, now it's time for me to do this my way, and she sent an email on a Friday. I was taking the exam on Monday. She goes, and she sent it to all the superiors and everybody to make me look bad and just say, he has not done anything. He has not gone into the system. He has not touched it in a month since he took the exam. And there is no way this guy's going to pass it or anything. And I got there and I took the exam and I scored, I think, 96. And it was the highest score in the history of the company.
Oh my gosh.
Failed to somebody who passed.
Mm.
And they're all looking at me like, what'd you do? I said, well, not what she told me to do, because that didn't work.
Mhm.
And, so don't diss me if you play that game.
Yeah.
So you're right, though. I mean, people do need to understand and figure out things on their own, what works best for them. You talked about with your book that you had the workbook, and, because some people learn better that way.
Yeah.
You mentioned, well, they don't need it, but actually, some people do.
Mhm. Using the workbook and writing things down, that reminds me, a lot of people like to journal. I don't, because again, I don't like repetitive tasks, but I do like to write down ideas. So for people out there who are, we were talking about figuring out what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, why you don't like it and all that, because the why is just as important.
Yeah.
When you're working and it's just a regular old day, when you need to learn to get in touch with your gut, your inner feelings, and when you have that sinking feeling inside, or the gut punch, or the, oh, I gotta do this again, that you don't even know that you're having, if you start tuning into your own feelings, and I don't mean like, ooh, but and think about, wait, what is it that I needed to do or had to do or was worried was going to happen? Let me write it down, just really quickly, write it down. And then you can go back later and explore, what was it about that really gave me that feeling? And it may have been fear or something, but a lot of times it's just, it goes against the way you want to work, this, that, and the other. And those are good things to shift off to other people.
Mm-hmm. Ken, you had something?
Just a couple of quick things. Yeah. As you see on screen, but if you're listening on the radio, for more of what Lisa does for her books, go to Lisa Kips-Brown. That's LISAKIPPS Brown.com. And then hit the media kit.
Oh, you don't have to go to the media kit. That was for y'all.
Oh, okay. So
that's fine though, if they want to, but.
Perfect. Yeah. Just go to LisaKipsBrown.com. Her books, everything are out there. Good stuff. Also just got a message via Facebook. The question is we're talking about building relationships and whatnot. Text. So you're connecting two people by text. So Bill, you are the person who has the commonality between, let's say, Lisa and myself. And you send a text like, hey, Kent, meet Lisa. Hey, Lisa, meet Kent. Is that good? Is it bad? Do you recommend it? Is that too much of a disrupt? Is it not enough of a disrupt, I think is what they're asking.
Do you want to answer first, Bill?
No, you go right ahead. You're the guest.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's how we met. I think Jan, I'll tell you, a young guy in Canada introduced me and Jan through text. I got a text message. He goes, Lisa, I met Jan. You were going to love her, blah, blah, blah. He didn't really tell us anything. But she and I talked. Then she introduced you and me through email. Then you introduced me to Jack Gillette. And now Jack introduced me to, I think, 5 people in the past week.
Yeah.
What you need to do
See now. See how that works, folks?
Right.
Yeah. And yes. So I know 7 people now that I didn't know before. I think just 7. Um, but the
And we're just getting
key
warmed
is,
up with you.
I think the key is that if you're asking to be introduced, or if you just say, "Oh my God, you really need to meet this person that I know," when you when you introduce them, tell them what they have in common.
Nice.
Tell them why you're introducing them. Don't say, "Oh, I thought you might want to have a website one day, so you meet Lisa. She owns a web development company." You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. Don't tell people what I do. Don't try and tell people what I do. You can't.
yeah, just something that you have in common. Like with me and Jan, it was a higher purpose, and that guy that knew me knows that everything I do, I like to have a higher purpose, and that's why he introduced us. But
Yep.
it
Well, here's the
can be about work, but don't do it like trying to sell somebody something.
right. I would have initially said, if I had answered first, I would have said, I don't like the text thing.
Mhm.
But I get it. It can work. I prefer an email
Yeah.
where I can do a better introduction. And but you're right. And here's the thing. Like people attract like people, right? And so you're meeting 7 people because there's people that you've met that realize what kind of person you are, and I can hook you up and
Mhm.
you're attracting good people. You're
Mhm.
attracting quality people, successful people. And the more you do it, the higher you go in your levels of meeting people. It's incredible how it works. It takes time. It is
Yeah.
very rewarding to have conversations with such brilliant people as yourself. But don't try to tell somebody, if I'm introducing Kent to you, I'm not going to tell you Kent's a producer. He's got this radio station, and he's looking for people who either want to do shows or sponsors.
Yeah.
Not, no,
That's not the way, right?
really neat guy, Kent. He's awesome.
Yeah.
You need to have conversation with him. I'm going to leave it at that.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know?
And I will say, match the message to the people. So the
Yeah.
guy that texted us, usually most people introduce me either through LinkedIn, direct message, a
Okay.
group message. They'll either do it through that or through an email. But that guy is like 25 or 26, and he
Okay.
knows me. He knows Jan. He felt comfortable, and that's the way he's used to communicating. So that didn't bother me at all. I would be really surprised if somebody older introduced me like that. Not that I care, because I tell my clients, text message me before you email me, because I'm going to see it a lot quicker, because I don't want to go get into the whole black hole of email. But yeah, match it to your audience. But you have to do that with everything. The way you
Yeah,
speak,
you do.
everything. You stop thinking about yourself and think about other people.
I agree with you. You do. And I want to kind of step back just a moment and go back to this PMA, positive mental attitude you're talking about. If you're still out there and on Sunday night, you're saying, oh, tomorrow's Monday,
Yeah.
or you wake up on Monday, like, oh, it's Monday, one of the least productive days of the week, along with Friday, because, it's Friday. Yay. I'm getting out of work. If you're feeling that way, you're probably doing something you just don't like, and you shouldn't be doing, because you're not living your life. Every day is an opportunity, and we look at that. I was just talking to a chief master sergeant that I met recently, has a book out, and in his book, one of the sayings they say is max fab. How you doing today? Max fab. When they were in charge of all 100,000 people, how's it going today? Max fab. Maximum fabulous. The positive mental attitude, he goes, it brings people together. It draws people to you that are like-minded, right? And that's really, important. Because, and not so much that they have to be like-minded, but maybe you're helping them become more positive.
Yeah,
right?
and if you meet people, you don't want everybody to be like you. You want people with different interests and different strengths. But also the thing about feeling down, like on a Sunday night, I don't want people to think that I'm like this all the time and I'm like, woo, and that I'm like, ha, 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 all the time, because I'm not. I'm a very positive minded person, but do I get down? Yes. Last weekend, I will tell you, I had a really, really, really rough weekend because of my husband's problems right now. It wasn't really anything in particular, but I started projecting forward and I started imagining what life is going to be like for him and for me as he gets worse. And he may not even get worse because right now they're like, we don't think you have Alzheimer's. Your brain looks better than it should at age 77. So we're not sure what's going on. But still, because I'd cared for my father-in-law and my mother, I was allowing myself to project, and I was already in the damn black hole of him, and then I was like, this is so stupid because I could literally pull out of my driveway and be killed by a car. So why am I
you
spending
just
time?
see it in conversation. What happens here is now you just gave me an idea of someone I need to introduce you to.
Oh, okay.
A friend of mine at the Herzog Hospital in Jerusalem that works on the brain.
Mhm.
And they say that he claims Alzheimer's is misdiagnosed half the time
Yeah,
in the
I
US.
believe that.
They
I
have
think
taken people
everybody
from
just
the
kind of
US and-
calls it that. Yeah.
yeah.
But
I mean, he's taken people from the US diagnosed with Alzheimer's and within 3 weeks had them thinking clearly and back to their old selves.
cool. Yeah,
Uh,
I'd love to meet him.
I
And
don't remember that.
and
Yeah,
I want to say, and I know this is off topic for what we were supposed to be talking about, but still, life is life. And if
Yeah.
and if you're an entrepreneur, you got to fit your own life into your business. Um, so what happened with Tom was he could tell he was having problems with his memory, and I could tell. But for a while, it's like you don't want to say anything. You don't want to hurt their feelings. But about a year and a half ago, we had a very frank conversation. And I said, I think both of us should go get a brain scan, get an MRI. I had no clue if it would do any, what it would show us. But I was like, I think we have to have a benchmark because your dad and my mother both had some type of dementia. And so that's why, and he's like, that's a good idea. And I was like, thank you. But he could have been offended, because a lot of people are like, how dare you say that? There's nothing wrong with me. But
Sure.
so he went and did that. And he was so afraid. And I was sitting in the lobby of the hospital after he went up. I'd been very positive. And as soon as he went up, I was just bawling because I already was projecting. But then they came back, and like I said, they said, your brain looks better than it should, than we think it should for your age. And so they
It's
still
hard.
haven't figured out, what it is, but they've tested for sleep apnea, this, that, and the other. But even if it ends up being something like Alzheimer's, at least we have a benchmark.
Yeah, you know where you stand, and it's funny because so many people do go through those emotions of as you're going into the test or you're going into surgery or and it's like, oh no, pray, and then you get the results, and it does in many ways bring relief.
Yeah,
It may not be the relief you were looking for,
right.
because it can create new problems and troubles. But like you said, it's a benchmark. You know where you stand.
Mhm.
And you can plan to move forward because same thing in business. If you don't know where you stand, how are you going to move forward? What is forward?
If you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there, and you'll never know when you arrive.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a lot of people just plod through their day, whether they have a job or a business, and they just do what they have to do. And, it's really easy when you're a small business owner to get your nose to the grindstone and get so busy working in your business because, hey, let's face it, we have bills to pay, but get so involved in that you're missing opportunities all around you. So that's another reason to step back, as Bill mentioned earlier. Take that step back, take a deep breath. And a very good example that anybody can relate to, every one of us have written something that we have proved over and over and over and over. And okay, there are no problems, there are no typos. And you hand it to somebody else and they're like, oh, why does this say that?
Here's
Sure.
how it gets spelled. Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it isn't misspelled, you can use word or something and run the spelling that, well, nothing's misspelled, but maybe you used left out a word or didn't put it. And it's like,
Right.
oh my God, I looked at that 1,000 times.
Well, it's kind of like a slang, it's you're writing, like I write to the way I speak,
Mhm.
and instead of writing the way properly
Yeah.
it should be written. And because I constantly click, no, that's not what I want. I put down what I want and leave it
Yeah.
be. Leave me alone.
Auto-correcting me.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I'm sure every one of us has gotten caught with that autocorrect, but
Oh,
um,
yeah.
some situation or other. But look, we're really down to our last couple of minutes
Yeah.
here. I just want to give you this opportunity. I mean, you've got 2 books. You know, we've talked more about the one. I love your idea of the positive mentality, positive mindset. It attracts the right people. It's better for business. I know, if you have employees, it's challenging to work with people that you don't know if they're coming in with, they just had a big fight with their spouse or going through a divorce, just found out they have cancer.
Yeah.
The attitudes, it's challenging, but having a positive attitude and seeking and understanding the opportunity,
Mhm.
I think is a great mindset to
Thank
have.
you. Thank you.
Uh,
It makes life a lot more enjoyable.
yeah.
Not perfect, but why if you can be positive and be content, that beats miserable any day.
Yeah, I admire you. I
Well, thank you.
absolutely admire you. We've had a few conversations now, and just a breath of fresh air.
Thank you. I've had so much fun talking with you. Now I got to get you on my show, Disrupt Your Now, so you can talk about the financial stuff in ways that people understand. This is not this big scary monster.
No, and the good Lord knows I can disrupt as well.
Oh, I know you can. I know. But see, by helping people, you're disrupting their thought patterns.
I'm actually part of a disruptors group in Dallas.
I know, Jan's right.
Yes.
Well, and I was going to say though, whatever we say we're going to talk about, we're going to be all over the place because we both like to talk.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Well,
All right.
I want to thank you for joining us on the show. Thank you, folks, for listening in. I hope you got something out of this today. I know I did.
Yeah, great stuff.
So I
Thanks,
can't thank you enough.
Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody out there.
You've got it. And for all of us here at 216 Creator Studios, thanks for joining another great episode of Innovative Strategies with Bill Hussey. Stick around because at high noon, we've got Digital Boss Boardroom with our good friend Bobby Bainey from Think Big, Go Local. Good stuff coming up. And then at 3 p.m., we've got In the Know with Steph and Joe. Thanks, folks. Until we meet again, be good, but more importantly, be good to one another.
Thank you all.